Tell us, Kelsey.
Well, I look into my crystal ball and I see a commute that's impacted by the wet roads, but because it's not that slippery on the highways and interstates, where we have the major part of our traffic, it shouldn't be too bad. But as we're adjusting to the winter driving conditions, it could throw a few wrenches in the morning commute, so just be prepared for it. But right now, we're not seeing drivers having to slow down. The slippery spots tend to be on those bridge decks, some of those ramps, or right as you're exiting off of the major highway onto your side street heading into work. That's where you may find that conditions are a little slippery. But for the most part, on the highways, you're going to need some windshield washer fluid because it got a little messy out there, at least when I was driving today. Here's a look at 94 at White Bear Avenue where we have traffic building. And again, you can see how the roads are a little bit wet out there, but we don't have any white stuff actually covering the roadway. Too much traffic for that, and we're not going to see Metro 94 eastbound, still traffic free flowing there. 169 southbound traffic building. 394 eastbound getting a little bit heavier, but still at this hour, it's light out there. The activity level continuing to build. To the northeast, same goes on 35E and 35W. We are seeing traffic building at the Forest Lake split, but it's pretty typical up there. So for a Thursday, even though we have some weather conditions to deal with, it isn't too bad quite yet. So guys, for now, back to you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Coming up with
It's mostly just wet out on our interstates and highways, but now that we have our first crash of the morning, it was a spin out. So we do know there are some slick spots out there, so you want to use some caution as you're making your way to work. 35W headed in the southbound direction at 8th Street. That is where we had one crash occurred very recently, and then just moments later, a secondary accident. So two different situations being dealt with here on 35W. We're looking at it from the Hennepin Avenue jam cam. I looked a little bit north of here. We don't have the major backups quite yet, but if this isn't cleared quickly, moving into the 7 o'clock hour, we're definitely going to see some delays. So prepare for a little extra drive time if you're heading on 35W southbound toward downtown Minneapolis. We also have another crash on 35W a little bit farther south. That's at 26th Street. This looks a little bit more out of the way. Drivers still able to pass by, but again, I'm guessing with the spinouts being reported, that is a definite indicator that it is a little slick. It's over a bridge. You might feel yourself slip around a little bit, so just be ready for that, just in case. Going to our map, we are seeing it start to light up a little bit, meaning we're seeing those colors. That's a slowdown. 94 eastbound, for example. 169 southbound through New Hope is building as far as traffic goes. 394 eastbound into downtown Minneapolis. 35W southbound, that area in Mounds View that gets backed up. We are seeing some slowdowns, but no major delays quite yet. No bumper-to-bumper conditions that I'm seeing. 94 westbound into St. Paul starting to get a little bit heavy just west of 61, but in between the two downtowns where we used to have that construction zone, and sometimes we are still seeing some of that work being done overnight. That is free and clear for now, but with some of the wet spots out there and what we're hearing from 35W, you can assume that we're going to maybe see a few more crashes this morning, and we just want to make sure we get everyone to work safely. So get into winter driving mode. It's that time of year. Tom?
Yes, it is. All right. Thank you, Kelsey.
Welcome to winter driving. Yes, today is the day we test out, if we remember, how to use those brakes and how we wait in lots of traffic and use our patience. It's actually not as bad as it could be because a lot of that snow that fell overnight was just a little bit, and on the highways and interstates it's already sort of melted off. So you're going to be dealing with wet conditions more than anything else. Some of the slick spots you might see will be on those bridge decks, maybe some ramps. We are seeing some heavy traffic in the 494 corridor here, headed westbound at France Avenue. A little bit heavier than we normally see at 626. Still fairly early for the really heavy congestion, but 35W southbound may be a little heavy there because we had not one crash but two as a result of some slippery spots. The reason I'm saying that is because it was reported as a spin out accident, and when we have that tends to lead us to believe that it's a little slippery out there. There were a few different crashes in this area. There was also one at 8th Street, so just be prepared. Some possible up in the heavier spots that we would typically see, so not too extraordinary of a morning in the world of traffic, but be sure to stay tuned. I'll let you know if we see any more crashes out there. We likely will. Quick break to all of you. Thanks for watching us here in the Fox 9 Morning News. What we've been doing is keeping an eye on the roads and the weather for you, because it's kind of the adjustment from fallish type driving conditions to the winter stuff. And what we're looking at right now is 35W at Chicago Avenue, where we did have one of our crashes this morning. It's been cleared. Now the highways and interstates themselves are really just kind of wet. They're not actually slippery for the most part, but we have seen a couple spin out accidents indicating there are some slick spots. Also keep in mind, we know those bridge decks and ramps, a little bit more potential for the slippery. This is where I said we had a crash with that cleared. We're not seeing the major delays, but we do have a vehicle in another area where we had a crash, 35W and 26th Street. In fact, so I don't know if this had more potential to get a little slicker or just a coincidence, but just keep in mind if you're traveling 35W, not only could you see some delays, but we also had a few crashes indicating there could be some potential there. In the Northwest Metro and even in the northern suburbs in general, the heavy traffic we're seeing, it's not, I'd say, out of the ordinary traffic, but it's just a little unusual that it's getting started so early. At 6:41, we typically would be seeing things things building, yes, but to have some backups on 94, 169, Highway 10 at Airport Road. Basically bumper to bumper conditions from Airport Road to 35W. The 35W southbound, pretty typical to have that slow going, but usually we'd see the heaviest stuff moving into the 7 o'clock hour. On the southern side of the town, 35W northbound slow, especially as you approach the Minnesota River Bridge. 494 even looking a little heavier in some spots than we normally would see. So I'd say bring out the patient's card this morning. It may take you a little bit longer to get to work, but no major out of the ordinary catastrophes out there weather-wise, I guess. So I think we caught a little bit break there, guys.
Yeah. We're glad we got a break there. Yeah, thank you.
It's an easy style job.
It is not too bad out there, considering we can't even see that snow on the side of the roadway, but on the actual highways and interstates, it's a little wet out there. You may need some extra windshield washer fluid in case some of that spray is getting on your windshield. But as far as the problems go, we've only had a few crashes, and they're centralized all in kind of one area. I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, you can see the crosstown westbound traffic heavy. That's not surprising at 712, but we are seeing that at times some MnDOT trucks are passing by. They're out there laying some chemicals down, so be sure to give them some space as they're working. They're trying to make things less slick for you out there. 169 southbound at 36th Avenue, we see that slow going traffic. We're down to about 15-20 miles per hour. And when things slow down on 169, it usually doesn't gain any momentum again until after 8:30. So prepare for maybe some delays in that area. 35E as you're headed southbound, we do see heavy traffic. That's just on the edge of your screen there. If you're heading in the northbound direction, use some caution. You're going to be approaching reduced speeds. Yes. I mentioned those crashes we've seen this morning. There were 3 of them, or 4, I think maybe, concentrated all in 35W in this area. I'm not sure if that means that just has some slick spots, but I just thought I'd let you know those crashes have all been cleared. So no major delays as a result of that, but checking out the rest of our region, just expect the typical morning delays. They got underway a little bit earlier, I think, because of that weather. But hopefully we'll see things not get too much worse as those roads just stay wet instead of slippery.
Some of us proactive. We like that.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Morning to you. We're checking out our roadways, and yes, we're getting into winter driving mode. However, today not too bad because for the most part our highways and interstates just kind of got wet. Any of that snow that fell melted off, and the trouble we're seeing, it may be on those side streets, ramps, bridge decks. That's where some of the slippery spots are. We do have some heavy congestion though throughout the metro area. This is Cedar Avenue near 35E. It's that stretch northbound from Apple Valley to Burnsville. We're really seeing the heavy stuff. There have been a few crashes this morning, 1 or 2 of them reported as spin out. So we do know there are some slick spots. One of those right now is 94 near the St. Croix Rest area. That's why we're seeing this westbound traffic on 94 just getting from Wisconsin over that Hudson Bridge into Minnesota and then having to slow down. I'm not sure if they're asking semis to exit here or what's happening, but obviously we do see some slow going conditions. So if you're making that westbound trek all the way from Wisconsin, you want to make sure you allow a little extra time because it looks like 169 southbound, that entire stretch from 94 south to 394. Highway 100 also backed up at this hour. We see it mostly in the northern part of it. As you get to Crystal, things ease up a bit, but from 94 down to County Road 81 especially, it's heavy traffic there. 35W southbound, we do tend to see the congestion at that Highway 1035W area anyway, so that's not too out of the ordinary. But 35E, some heavy traffic starting southbound as you reach White Bear Lake. 36 westbound, heavy between 35E and 35W, about 15 miles per hour there. To the South Metro, 94 westbound, besides that trouble we're having in Woodbury and sort of from that Afton into Woodbury area. We're also seeing slow conditions starting east of Highway 61 moving into St. Paul. In the Southwest Metro, 212 definitely lit up because we are seeing stop and go conditions there. So for the most part, although the roads aren't that bad, it is taking a little bit longer for people to get to work, so just make sure you maybe get out the door just a little early today. We're taking a quick break.
Our first day of meteorological winter. Kelsey.
Yes, we are adjusting to some slick conditions in some areas, but as Keith mentioned, it's mostly on the side streets. You may see a little slick on the ramps, the bridge decks, and what you definitely will be seeing are some slow going traffic conditions. We're looking at 212 right now in Eden Prairie. Traffic actually backed up into Chanhassen, so be prepared. You're going to see that snow on the side of the roadway. Not seeing a lot of it right on the roadways. In fact, today the only thing I need was my windshield wiper fluid to keep the splashing of that wetness up onto your car so you can see all right. We're looking though at one spot where we do have a crash, and that is on 94 headed in the westbound direction. This is just over when you get over the Hudson Bridge. We're seeing these semis exit there to go to the scale station, but what's happening to these cars is they're sitting in bumper to bumper conditions as they approach that St. Croix rest stop. That's where the crash occurred, and doesn't look like that's getting cleared. We also had a crash on 94 headed in the eastbound direction at Manning. That was reported to have some injuries involved as well. It looks like that one is cleared, but in general what you need to know is that it's a little slow going in this part. The 36, some of these spots we're pretty used to, but it's just a little bit heavier I think than we're used to seeing, and we're not in quite snow mode yet, but definitely drivers being a little cautious out there today. Guys.
Good reason.
A good thing.
It's winter driving time. We're brushing out the old winter driving skills and testing them out. The good news is, for the most part, our roadways mostly just wet, not too slippery, although we have had a few spin-out accidents today. So you do want to use some caution and, of course, give those MnDOT trucks a little space. They're out there laying some chemical to try and make conditions as good out there as possible. Looking at Highway 100 in St. Louis Park, this is northbound traffic especially heavy, but southbound as well. A lot of our highways and interstates look like this right now, meaning it's just very busy. It's congested. A lot of drivers using some caution out there, and that slows things down. And as we ease into this new winter mode, it's going to be a little slow for a few days. Looking at 35E northbound at Wagon Wheel Trail, this is the Mendota Heights heading northbound, heavy traffic here as well. We're also seeing that on 94 near Highway 95. Now this is just as you get over that Hudson Bridge, so making that trek from Wisconsin into Minnesota. Things are actually looking a little bit better. We did have a crash near the St. Croix rest stop. There was also one reported earlier at Manning Avenue, so the whole Woodbury-Afton area, that stretch of 94, has been a little slow this morning. So just something to prepare for. In fact, it goes as far west as Chanhassen, 169 northbound slow as well. In fact, there's not really a spot on here that isn't slow right now. We are in the heart of rush hour, so that's to be expected. But then, of course, we also have that cautious winter driving, and it looks like that's not going anywhere as we move into December. We're going to take a quick where we saw some heavy eastbound traffic trying to reach the downtown Minneapolis, which you can see the skyline there in the distance. But as far as the weather conditions go, without that refreezing on the highway, because it's not quite cold enough, we have enough activity, we're not seeing the slick conditions. We did have a few crashes earlier today that were reported as spin outs, so we do know there is some potential there, but mostly the slick stuff would be on those side streets, ramps, bridge decks. This is 169 at 36th Avenue. Again, we're seeing the snow on the side of the road finally looking like those 35Ws where we saw a couple of the crashes early on this morning where we had the spinouts. Something to note in that same area, 35W northbound ramp to 3rd Street. That's going to be closed today and tomorrow just from 9 to 3. So that'll be happening in about an hour, but I know a lot of you use that way. The detour is Washington Avenue. Just want to make you aware of that. In the Northwest Metro, 494 southbound, very heavy traffic starting at Bass Lake Road. 169 still very busy. Highway 100 southbound, we saw reduced speeds, especially in the northern part up near the 94 junction. To the northeast, 35W southbound actually winding down north of Highway 10. The heavier stuff pushing down toward 36. And as we showed you in a jam cam, 212 eastbound still one of the heaviest spots. 35W northbound actually improving a bit, and 494 crosstown never ceases to disappoint us as far as the activity goes. Still busy there as well. And the slowdowns again, mostly I think just because drivers are using a little caution. But it looks like this is easy going compared to what we might see coming up on Saturday. And to talk more about our weather is Keith Marler. And a happy Thursday to you. We're kicking off December with some December-like weather. And out there we have some snow. We're seeing it on the side of our roadways, but as far as the major interstates and highways go, for the most part, we've just been seeing some wetness out there. It's been splashing up. I know I used plenty of windshield washer fluid this morning. You may need some too as you head out the door, but we're not seeing a lot of slick spots. That's the good news. Where we're going to see that is more on those side streets, those ramps, bridge decks. So be aware of that. We are transitioning into that full winter driving mode. But 169 southbound's been slow throughout the morning, but now conditions beginning to improve. At 8:30, we'll see things starting to wind down. Let's go to our map and check out those speeds. Where we're seeing green, we know we're getting back to normal. Not quite yet in the Northwest Metro. We're 494. We're still seeing that heavy traffic southbound through Plymouth. 169, we showed you in that jam cam, still has quite a bit of activity. 394 eastbound into downtown Minneapolis. We're finally seeing those last vehicles filter in, so it gets really busy at this hour right in the downtown area. 35W southbound easing up, but 694 not the case there. Westbound traffic heavy, especially around the Rice Street area. Same goes for 36. Still some construction stuff going on around the Rice Street area on 36 where they're widening that roadway and replacing a bridge. So you'd think the construction was over, right, with the snow around, and well, not quite yet. 52 southbound single file traffic as you approach 494, so it's been slow going there throughout the morning as well. To the Southwest Metro, 212 eastbound, still heavy traffic from Chanhassen into Eden Prairie. 169 northbound, same goes for that area. And one thing to keep in mind is we still have that lane closure, that ramp from 494 westbound onto 169 northbound. That will not open up until tomorrow morning about 6 a.m. Another construction project leading to a closure on 35W. It's that northbound ramp to 3rd Street that's closed. It's today and tomorrow. Goes into place at 9 a.m. So just 30 minutes away now. It will last until 3. So they're trying not to have that closure during the real heart of rush hour in the morning or at night, but it will be being worked on. That detour is Washington Avenue. Also something to note if you're traveling in the Minneapolis area throughout the weekend starting today, that Holidazzle Parade again will be up and running starting at 6:30. That's going to affect the traffic around the Nicollet Mall area between 12th Street and 4th Street. So at least a little snow now to put you in the spirit of the Holidazzle Parade. But of course, there's always a little traffic that comes with it. Let's talk more about the weather, which is feeling